Hello everyone, I'm Ben McKelvey and I'm here today to talk about my new album, Fully Restored with Original Parts, and joined by the wonderful Jake Robbins who produced the album. Thanks for coming down, man.
Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you coming down and looking forward to diving into stories. Diving deep. It is a deep album. Diving into the stories and the recording process of this record.
I was really excited when you came to me with the idea of doing this album. What actually inspired you to sort of push your music in this direction?
I've always been most inspired by the more classic artists and more, I guess, retro stuff, and I've always wanted to make an album like that, like Springsteen's Nebraska and those kind of just raw, live feeling storytelling records. And, I've always wanted to do it, and it just seemed like it was the right time to do that.
I mean, to me, it felt like a reaction to, previously you'd worked with Roy Stride on your last album and you kind of challenged yourself to almost go as poppy as you could go. Is that fair to say that that's kind of why you felt like you needed to go completely the opposite way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I've steadily started doing that over the years. I've gone more that direction because of touring, and you start getting in your own head like, oh, if I go out and support this band, I want the crowd to like me, and no one's there to see you, and you've got thousands of people every night waiting for the main act. I want to make sure they remember me, so you play your catchiest songs. And obviously it sways the way that you write when you've got all this stuff going on, because as an independent artist, you need to have like your label head on and your management head on, because you're doing those jobs as well. As I said, I started with writing stories, before I was playing gigs, I was never planning on showing anyone my songs. For me, it was just about writing a story with a couple of chords and some words as a bit of an escape, really. But in terms of it being a reaction to the last album, working with Roy and Alex was amazing. And to me, I guess that whole experience was like a songwriting course, because I'd never went to university or college or anything after school, and was, adamantly told by my teachers I should absolutely not pursue music just because I couldn't read it and all my exams were terrible. But it was so good because I'd always just written songs the way I think I should write songs, and gone and hit record, and that's how I put out songs. I'd never did anything else, didn't think about it more than that. But working with Roy was amazing because, I'd think I had a chorus, and then he'd, bring a post into it and stuff. And then I was just like, wow, I'd never thought about writing like that. So it was an amazing experience, and, really pleased with the album. But in terms of sound, I guess that over the years, I just lost what I'm really about and who I really am. And then after a pretty horrendous year in my personal life, I felt like I needed to draw a line under a lot of stuff and just wanted to be me.
It's really hard to navigate when you're in the music industry and you're in survival mode, and you get on a stage and, like you say, you've written a certain bunch of songs, then you feel like, oh, maybe if I write these kinds of songs, then that crowd will, like me more or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think you got further and further away from what your true artist self is. Yeah, I guess this is your return to finding yourself as an artist again. And, writing songs and like pop songs and writing catchy songs can be a different thing to just being like putting your heart on the sleeve. And this record is like you putting your heart on the sleeve right the way through, and not catering to anyone else's needs, is for yourself, right? I think we needed to shake things up between us as well. Like over the years when you started, it was just like put the drums down, record it well.
Yeah, I found that I became almost a bit of a songwriting machine rather than really thinking about what record I was putting out, because
Yeah.
I'd write a song and say, great, I love this, I'm gonna play it live, better record it so people know the words, and that was it.
Yeah.
And
You didn't really think past that.
no, and I put myself under a lot of pressure to just constantly bring out music when I didn't need to, really, because obviously every time I was going on a support tour, I could have just toured that one album for 6 years if I wanted to, because everyone at those crowds I would have been brand new to them.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you're picking up fans along the way, you want to give them new music. But I forced myself to rush getting into the studio. And while I'm very proud of everything I put out, I wouldn't put stuff out if I didn't love it.
Yeah.
But what was great about getting in and doing this was not just planning a different kind of sound altogether, a different environment, but, I just got back from a long tour, a couple of months on the road. I wasn't in like the best place. And this whole record was just like the best therapy I could have ever asked for. I went in to do this. I haven't felt like that since I've done my first album, when I'd go in and be like, I don't care if anyone likes it. I love it. And if people don't want to listen to it, then they don't have to listen to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it felt like a weight had just come off my shoulders. It was just, it was great.
Well, I was really glad for you to do that because, I love, the other stuff you've done, and they're really fun to play live and all that. But I think your strength lies in the lyrics and the storytelling, and this album really flies the flag for that.
So I saw a thing the other day that was really interesting about putting your strength at the front, which makes a lot of sense because obviously whatever you're best at, that's your thing, that's who you are. And it's probably a confidence thing. When I first started out, not being like the best singer, and I really felt like where I am now, it was time to show off my strength, which is lyrics.
Yeah.
I think I'm an okay guitarist. I can play guitar. I think I've got a voice. I don't think I'm necessarily like an amazing singer, but what I can do is put words together, and the sound of my voice and the lyrics are what I always get complimented on. So it made sense to make a record with those things at the front. And the fact we could tie this in to make a record like all my heroes, Johnny Cash, Bob Dylan, Springsteen, everything kind of made sense.
Absolutely. And I wanted to make that a reality for you. So like when you mentioned Nebraska, like I'd already done a lot of reading on that album previously, because it's one that gets mentioned quite a lot in terms of like if someone wants to do like a quieter sounding record. But yeah, so I instantly knew how to approach it, which really excited me. People mention it loosely, but this was like, no, let's go for that. Let's put restrictions on. We tried to emulate having only a certain amount of tracks. So we would limit, the things that would go on the songs. Ran like the vocals through a cassette tape to give it that same feel.
I thought that was such an amazing idea. Like, I would have never thought that. And
I just loved I got given the opportunity to like go full hog on trying to make our version of that.
Yeah.
It was just really fun to be able to like from the off have a vision. And I've done quite a few albums now, and that does happen, but when you're restricted, the more you're restricted, actually, the more you can kind of like have fun with it, because like nowadays we've got so many options. So it was really great to say, actually, let's pretend like we don't.
And the funny thing is that all that stuff bores me.
Yeah,
like
I know you've never been that technical.
I'm so my car is from 1972. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it hasn't got sat nav. I'm like, great. It hasn't got hands free. Good. No one can call me, because when I'm driving, I want to be driving. I love cars. So I'm not into modern tech. I use it to make my life easier. I have a phone, and a laptop. But the point is that it was great with all that in mind, because for me as a performer in the studio, I would just do a guitar take and I'd be done.
Yeah.
There was no click track. There was
Yeah.
no tuning the vocals.
Well,
it was
let's talk about the click clack. Click
the
clack.
click clack.
Let's talk about the click track.
It's that dance move we were doing in there. Is it?
Because I remember, again in the first conversation, like we worked together a lot on different things, but you said, I want to do an album which sounds more raw and, a bit more stripped back. And you mentioned the references. And I suggested like, well, let's go for it. Like, let's do no click. And I remember you're like, what?
Yeah,
No click?
Yeah.
Because we'd spent, I don't know how many years you've been recording with me, but like literally every other song we've done bar like maybe, was it Somewhere Else on? No,
yeah.
Oh, not Somewhere. Was it something?
Things we do?
Things We Do.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was just one take.
It's funny though, because obviously when I did my very first ever EP,
That's what it was
100,000
like.
welcomes,
Yeah.
the idea of recording a click track, I went,
Yeah.
oh no, you're taking like the soul out of it. Like, and because I'm a drummer, I was kind of like, well, I can just kind of keep time. Obviously, as I was doing bigger sounding albums, and you got the drums have got to be really tight, and then you got the guitar parts very precise, and everything's very polished. You need to do it to click.
It's also different if you're playing in a band that's very good. You can push and pull off the click, but with those kind of songs, you're tracking everything.
Yeah.
So you can't track everything out of time to track.
And then remember that second verse is a bit faster.
It'd be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
So,
but it's funny how I was when I first started, and this is it's funny how things come
full circle.
Because when I first started, I hated recording to click. Obviously, got used to it over the years. Would never think about not recording to click.
Yeah.
And this album was almost like, oh, really? We're doing it really live then. And it's just, And then, but I'm so glad we did.
But then as soon as we laid down the first song, and like, I remember there was a bit of nerves, like, so almost like, what do I do? And I was like, just play it like you're in your living room, and then we worked out the process of doing it. You literally play it through like that once. We'd make sure that it felt the right tempo and it felt natural. Then you'd do a double and basically play exactly the same. That'd be it.
Yeah.
And that was like the core of the whole record. Everything else was kind of experimented on top, but I wanted to capture like that really intimate, like, because it's funny, sometimes when you play just, you're always picking up a guitar, trying new ideas. And you're not thinking, like, you do keep time really well because you are a drummer. Like, you've got an inbuilt metronome. But also on this record, there's times where you want it to slow down a little bit, and you want it to have a natural, because...
As if almost you were playing it to an audience.
Yes, because you would naturally do that.
Of course. Yeah, whenever we play live and we'll do a song, when like, Only Here Once, for example... when that breaks down into the bridge, that wouldn't be to click, because you long it out and you make it like an actual point.
Yeah.
And so it was so enjoyable. There wasn't a moment on this album that I thought, this session's dragging a bit, or I'm feeling a bit tired. It was so natural and so easy and just really good fun.